The whole past question is, why do you think the Philippines is prime for investments compared to any other region? But hold that thought. Oh, are you ready?
I can't hold thoughts.
Yeah.
I'll answer that question if you want.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Okay, I'm going to tell you a story. About 6 months ago, I was asked to attend a grassroots meeting here in Manila, talking about blockchain in the Philippines. And it was a very hot morning, and there was very little air conditioning where I was. And the second speaker of the morning was me. The first speaker spoke about blockchain in the Philippines and concluded his speech by saying the Philippines was going to be a great market for this technology, but it wasn't quite ready. And I got up on stage and I said, before I get into what I want to talk about, I want to challenge the previous speaker. Because 2 or 3 days before, I was laying in bed here and I was reading an article in Forbes magazine talking about the demographics of the Philippines, the state of the economy here, and where it sat in the Asian nation group of companies. So I challenged the previous speaker and I said, I disagree with you totally. I think the Philippines is ready, and the Philippines is ready right now. So from my perspective, I've had a close relationship with this country since 2010. I've lived here during that period of time, but I am, multi-homed at the moment. I live in Switzerland and I also live here. But the technology that I work with is digital transformation. And digital transformation means social impact. And social impact for me is a very important thing these days. As you get older and wiser, presumably, you start to think about different things when you're making investments and when you're making commitments. And for me, the opportunity to invest, bring my technology into this country, work in partnerships with government and enterprise, and make a profound social impact here is probably one of the most important aspects of my investment decisions.
You sound like you're actually describing our work in Digital Pilipinas. Now, Mr. Steve Tsao, you're one of the OGs in the online game space. You were investing even before esports got cool. Tell us about what your current portfolio is, what you're excited about, and what do you think about investing in the Philippines, and where should investors invest in?
So I guess I'm more of a hobbyist investor, angel investor, and I also run a portfolio of investments out of our corporate vehicles. I built online game companies, Southeast Asia, Arabic, Middle East, China. Had a IPO, Abu Dhabi bought the other one, and the other one is New York Stock Exchange listed. After that, I built much more profitable businesses, which are in the controversial areas of online casinos. So did very well on that, sponsored probably Juventus, Arsenal, Inter Milan, AC Milan. Then have investments in crypto casinos. So I have a lot of investments in fintech, ranging from Brazil to India, South Africa, Bangladesh, certainly the Philippines. There's a few portfolio companies here, whether it's fintechs, digital banks, ride sharing, and others. So I don't really keep track because I'm not a professional. So I just, enjoy and try and invest in things I can figure out how to help.
He's very professional at being unprofessional about investing. And Mr. Mahmoud, very good to see you. Listen, in the year when global investments in tech companies have gone down, it's actually gone up in the Philippines. And word on the street is that Creador had a lot to do with that. So tell us about your interest in the Philippines, sir. And Creador, of course.
So Creador is a private equity firm. We're headquartered in Malaysia, and we like to invest in companies in India and Southeast Asia. Creador has invested and committed about 10 billion pesos so far, so around $250 million, to invest in 6 businesses here in the Philippines that are operating. So Angkas, the ride-hailing company, Uno Bank, which is a digital bank, CIBI, the credit bureau, Mr. DIY, which is a Malaysian DIY chain we've brought to the country, Dali, which is a grocery chain. And effectively what we're trying to do is to help the Philippine economy grow. For many years, you had great angel investors and VC investors. We then saw smaller private equity funds, but there was a gap in the mid-market. People who could invest between $40 and $100 million to try take that company from being an SME and to try make it a large corporate. And so Creador is looking to invest anywhere up to $1 billion in the next 10 years in this country. And we are looking for great companies with fast growth and able to deliver a good return for our investors.
So let's pretend we're not in a panel and we're drinking wine and eating chicken joy just amongst us, all three of you. Tell me, what would you want the government of the Philippines to change so that there could be a more enabling environment for investors to come in? So let's just pretend it's the four of us.
Well, generally, if you're a foreigner or a foreign corporation and you're looking at investing, ease of doing business is one of the important considerations. And we heard in two keynotes earlier today about initiatives that the government has already kicked off, which are, by definition, streamlining the ability to transact and do business, breaking down, the paper barriers and the processes. So that's a very important consideration, I think, for anyone. I mean, I said I've been here for a number of years. I know how difficult it is sometimes just to do some of the simplest things.
So easy.
I have a controversial perspective on this.
That's what we love about you, Steve.
So
let's hear it.
So the thesis would be to protect actual Filipino entrepreneurs. Okay, so the Philippines lacks the antibodies of foreign entrants that Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam would naturally have. And so by what I mean by that is because English basically allows everybody, including myself and others that are foreigners, to build super successful startups here. And on top of that, what's even a concern is if a young Filipino entrepreneur builds something with a heartbeat, and let's say a competitor that's NASDAQ listed wants to come in with their $20 billion market cap, good effing luck stopping them from crushing your young Filipino entrepreneurs. So I'm not asking for red tape, but I do think you need to give young Filipino entrepreneurs, actual Filipino entrepreneurs, a bit of room to breathe, to scale and grow defensibilities in their businesses.
Later, I'm going to ask you about the Indonesia experience because that's a market that you're very familiar with, and that's where I mostly see you. So hold that thought. Put a pin on that. Omar?
Yeah, so I think, listen, Southeast Asia is emerging. So when you look at entrepreneurs and companies that have been able to create hundreds of millions of dollars and then ultimately billions of dollars of value creation, broadly speaking, they haven't been in the Philippines yet. Now, they started off in the Western world, then they started moving to Europe, and now you're starting to see some Asian companies do it. But the Philippines is on that brink, but it's not there yet. But we've clearly seen a lot of, valuable companies be created out of Singapore, out of Malaysia, out of Indonesia. And there is a potential wave that could come from the Philippines. And I think, the government is really trying its best to create some new initiatives. I would say, listen, you never want to block foreign entrants coming in, but how do you incentivize and maybe give certain tax breaks, incentives to local-based companies to help them compete? We've seen this work very, very well. Unfortunately, Malaysia saw it at a brief period, and the government have really tried to make a lot of efforts now. A lot of Malaysian companies moved to Singapore. It's a real shame because actually the talent was built there, the ideas were from there. But actually the Singaporean government was very clever that they gave so many incentives to make people move there. We'd hate that to happen. We started seeing Filipino companies moving to Hong Kong or Singapore. That would be a great shame for the country. So I think, clearly the government is thinking of a lot of great creative ways. And I just think if they can further help local companies, that could help the ecosystem here, because Philippines has the brains, it has the opportunity, but we're on that brink and it's not quite there yet.
Since we're drinking wine and chatting, I agree totally with what the both of you just said, because one of the significant investments that we've made is in a Filipino incubator. It was part of the commitment that I made almost a year ago to the provincial government in Bataan, was to establish a blockchain incubator, which will be between Manila and Bataan. And our first cohort will be well and truly in play by February. Now, the investment there is we're growing incubation here in the Philippines, and the goal was for the Philippines and for the world. So, when you invest in an incubator, your expectation is, or your hope is, that you generate a very successful business out of that process. And to your point, what you don't want as an investor is an international corporation coming in and crushing it, or other forms of causing that to leave the country because it needs to survive.
Just to build on your point, because what happens in Indonesia is after Gojek became the first unicorn in Indonesia, 40 other billion-dollar plus valuation tech companies happen. Philippines is starting with zero, and there needs to be some to be truly from here, because that will cultivate, motivate, disseminate to more entrepreneurs to bring up more seeds.
So I totally agree. So let me clarify that. You mean the bootstrapping type of unicorn who's really worked their way up, not the corporate back ones. Just like Gojek or Tokopedia in Indonesia. No, because we technically have 2 unicorns, technically, in the Philippines, right? But we still talk about how we need to have that one unicorn that will achieve the tipping point. So you don't have to answer that right now, because I don't want it to get too controversial. Listen, I have a question for you guys. Who is going to be, in your estimation, the next Philippine unicorn?
Can't say who.
You're not allowed. You're not allowed. You need...
Was that a trick question?
It wasn't. You need to state a brand or a name. None of the, I can just give you a category. Who would be the closest to possibly becoming the next Philippine unicorn?
So I think I answered this at your other event. And my point of view is really simple. You break it down. For something to be a unicorn means somebody cut a check for about $150 million at $1 billion valuation. So the question is, who is cutting that check for $150 million in the Philippines, and what? And then the second point I want to make on that, and certainly no offense to anybody on the panel, is I actually don't think money is that smart, nor that brave. So no money manager out there is going to take the big balls move and say, I'm going to place a bet in the Philippines on this, when it hasn't succeeded somewhere else. So the easiest way to look at it is, what are the unicorns in other parts of Southeast Asia in those sectors and industries? And that's probably going to be the unicorn here, because I don't think anybody on the US, New York, or whatever is going to make that gutsy call to say, I think I'll place this bet here, even though it's the first. So
what would that be?
I'm biased, and we have a bias together. So yeah.
So let's leave it to Omar to disclose the bias, if there is. Omar?
No. I have no idea who will be the next unicorn. I think Creador, we have the ability to write those checks. We can do between $2 to $5 billion peso checks if we wanted to. I haven't seen a company that I would invest 5 billion pesos in yet at a 50 billion plus peso valuation. I think a lot needs to happen in this country. I think people get carried away with unicorns. They want to talk about it. The most off-putting thing for an investor is when you speak to an entrepreneur and he starts talking to you about his desire to be a unicorn. I'm just like, can you just talk to me about your business model, your plan?
I tell them I'll get them a costume in Toys R Us when they say that.
Unicorn. But no, for us, it's not. I don't look at companies and say, hey, how do I find the next unicorn? I say, how do I find a good business that is solving a real customer need that can generate real tangible money, that when you factor in your cost base, you will churn out a profit at the end. And more importantly, after we've invested in them for 5 to 7 years, there will be somebody who will be willing to invest in the company after us, or the capital markets could take that type of listing. At this point in time, there's a few companies who may get there, but I wouldn't bet on any of them yet, because there's a lot of hard work to do.
I have a preference for what I'd like to see a homegrown unicorn doing here, and that would be in the area of cybersecurity management using blockchain technology and AI. I think that would be an amazing business to home grow here in the Philippines.
Bitcoin mining, Bitcoin wallet, blockchain, stablecoins, MetaNet, the evolution of money. Everybody is talking about Bitcoin today, but what exactly is it? Learn the basics from experts. Learn what Bitcoin is, how it works, and why it matters. Blockchain 101, your ultimate guide to the fundamentals of blockchain.